What's good, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs? Welcome back to another devlog. If you're new here, I've been making a roguelike called Devlog. This is now the fourth video I've made chronicling the development of the game, and if you haven't seen the rest of these, you really should check them out. In the last devlog, I showed off several new spell concepts as well as a basic player UI. This time, I've implemented some basic fixes, critical hits, and the first few item concepts. Let's start with some of the quick things. First, I've added crits to the game. When a character attacks, they have a chance of that hit being a critical hit, based on their crit chance stat. The player's crit chance will always start at 1%, but can be increased via items, spells, or other effects. If a hit becomes a crit, its damage is multiplied by the character's crit damage stat, which usually starts at 2 and can also be increased during a run. I'm still not sure if I want to allow enemies to score crits against the player, but I think I'll have to figure that out through testing. I've also updated the damage numbers that pop out of targets to have a slightly different style when the damage comes from a critical hit. I've also finally fixed the damage numbers so that they fade out correctly. They used to just pop out after a time. This fading behavior was always the intended behavior, but my code just wasn't working properly and I somehow never noticed. Now for the biggest update to the project, the new items. These are going to be a fundamental part of the game, as they'll be the main way that a player can become stronger throughout a run. When the player enters a new chamber, there will be a chance for that chamber's reward to be a random item. Items will drop when the chamber is fully cleared of enemies, at which point they could be added to the player's inventory. There is no limit to the number of items the player can hold, and the effects of duplicate items can stack on top of each other. Each of the items is unique, with some being stronger than others. The power of an item is offset by its rarity. There are 4 levels of rarity: common, uncommon, rare, and legendary. Common items have the weakest effects, but are the easiest to obtain, while legendary items have stronger effects and are much harder to find. I have made some very simple models for these items, but these models should not be considered final. Why don't we go through each of the item concepts I've implemented, starting with the common items. There are a total of 5 common items. Each of them is a ring with a different type of gem and a different effect on your stats. The ruby ring increases your max health by 10%. The emerald ring increases your movement speed by 10%. The sapphire ring increases your attack speed by 10%. The topaz ring increases your damage by 10%. And the amethyst ring increases your crit chance by 5%. These items are each very simple, but still provide valuable buffs to the player's stats. When it comes to uncommon items, there are currently 3. First is the barbed fish hook. This item increases the damage multiplier of your critical hits by 0.1. Secondly, we have the blue feather. This item gives you 1 additional charge for your dodge ability. Basically, you can dodge 1 additional time without having to wait for the cooldown to fully complete. Thirdly, we have the arcane lens. This octagonal crystalline lens reduces the cooldown of your spells by 10%, allowing you to cast more frequently. There are also 3 rare items. Each of these gives 2 bonuses instead of just 1. First is Swiftness Serum, which boosts your movement speed and attack speed by 10%. Second is Stone Skin Ointment, which boosts your maximum health and your damage by 10%. Thirdly, we have the Flawless Prism, which boosts your crit chance and crit damage by 10%. Finally, we have the legendary items. There are 5 of these, and each of them grants resistance to a different damage type. The Turtle's Shell grants resistance to physical damage, the Dragon Scale grants resistance to elemental damage, the Broken Halo grants resistance to radiant damage, the Golden Leaf grants resistance to primal damage, and the Infernal Horn grants resistance to dark damage. This is by no means going to be the final list of items. I have plenty more ideas for items and the effects they could have, and I also have some ideas for unique items that have to be obtained by completing certain challenges or by defeating specific enemies or bosses. Well, that'll be all for this devlog. Can you believe I said I'd be uploading these every 2 to 3 weeks? Since I'm the only one working on both the game and these devlogs, I'm going to shoot for once a month from now on. One of the biggest hangups for these last few weeks of development has been making all those models. 3D modeling is something that I'm still pretty new to, but it was actually really fun learning how to make them. It's still probably going to be a while before I try to tackle character modeling, but we'll get there someday. Anyway, if you'd like to follow this game's development, please feel free to subscribe. I try to upload these devlogs monthly if I can manage. You can also follow KW Games on Twitter and Instagram by following the links in the description. There, I'll notify you when a new devlog is released. Anyway, until next time, and thanks for watching.